Hello, viewers. This is Dr. Qamar Cheema, Executive Director of the Snowbird Institute, and I'm going to have a wonderful conversation this evening on post-US election scenarios. And for this, we have a wonderful and excellent panel to talk on this particular subject. We have with us Ambassador Azaz Ahmad Chaudhry. He's a former Foreign Secretary and the Chairman Snowbird Institute. And our special guest for today's conversation is Ambassador Tokir Hussain. Is a former ambassador, currently adjunct professor at Georgetown University and visiting senior research fellow at the National University of Singapore. Thank you very much, Ambassador Tokir Hussain, for your time for the Snowbird Institute, sir.
Thank you, Qamar, and thank you, Azaz. And I feel honored that you asked me to appear on your, because I feel privileged you have set up this sort of great think tank which is making an invaluable contribution to Pakistan's strategic thinking. And I really admire your efforts and commitment and dedication. And as I have often said, Azaz, to you, your articles are a great source of public service. So I really feel privileged that you asked me to come and talk.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, I will ask Ambassador Azaz if you could start the conversation and how we have to move on with Ambassador Tokir Hussain, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Tokir, for joining us. As you perhaps might be aware, Snowbird Institute is a private sector think tank and a voice of reason and an independent voice on issues of strategic significance for Pakistan. And we believe that the forthcoming elections in the United States of America are important not only for the US itself, but for the whole world, in fact, all regions, including South Asia and including Pakistan. And therefore, we thought it fit to get your wisdom on this. Although I have read I think recently written 3 articles on this subject by yourself, and I have learned a great deal on them. And some of the questions that we have framed actually stem from what you have written in the Daily Dawn and the news. And so thank you so much for being with us. I would like to start by an overall comment on the US foreign policy post 5 November elections. And as you can expect, everyone thinks that Harris is going to uphold Biden's focus on democracy, on multilateralism, and strengthening alliances, especially to counter China and also support Ukraine. Trump's approach, we understand, might be more unilateral, with less emphasis on multilateralism. He's also expected to lay greater emphasis on America First strategy, and he might also adopt potentially softer stance towards Russia and North Korea. So as a whole, we'll talk about these specific issues in greater detail, but the broad thrust of the foreign policy of both Harris and Trump, what is the primary difference that you see?
Thank you, Azaz and Qamar, again for having me. And it's an important question. I mean, everybody's asking himself, herself, what's going to happen. As you rightly said, Harris policies will be kind of continuation of Biden's traditionalist approach to foreign policy. Traditionalist approach means that belief that a strong America is critical to the international peace and stability, and also for that strength, alliances count a lot. So policy is to strengthen the alliances and have sort of inspired confidence among the allies, so that at least at the strategic level, America's strength is retained. Of course, Biden has been talking a lot about human rights, democracy, and to be very honest, these have been mainly rhetorical commitments. And they have not really done anything concrete or substantive, neither for promotion of human rights or for promotion of democracy. They have done nothing about Kashmir. They have done nothing about what's happening, these horrific sort of carnage that is going on in Gaza. So, what kind of human rights can you talk about? These are just rhetorical, and probably he will continue to maintain the same approach with same minimal effect. And in fact, they perhaps by now they must have realized themselves that this approach is very hollow. Look at the idea of democracy summit and contest between autocracies and democracies. Nobody's taking this rhetoric seriously. So I think on that, uh, many international, many countries might be worried that they will be talking about human rights. They should not worry, and those who are expecting, they should not have too much expectation on that count. As far as Trump is concerned, as you rightly said, he is kind of isolationist. And basically, Trump's foreign policy, or for that matter, his any policy, is about himself. I know it's very hard for people to believe. Really, it's hard. But I am telling you the essence of what I have learned in the past 8 years that I have been studying him, and in fact, going back to even before 2016. Who is this man? What is he up to? Trumpism is about Trump,
Hmm.
and he sort of devised a perfect plan because he knew that he would have no appeal to a united America. He would not have no appeal to a wider audience. He's not an intellectual. Doesn't have the intellectual integrity. So what he did, he exploited the existence uh, divisions within America, which had been developing over a long period of time, and sharpened them and made one part of that as its ally by creating animosity and hatred against the other. Democracy means that two parties should be able to cooperate with each other, live with each
Hmm.
other, accommodate each other,
Hmm.
compromise. But the kind of words that he has been speaking about Democrats, evil, and the horrific sort of language that he has been using about Harris, I don't want to even repeat it
Hmm.
on this. So this is not democracy. This is not even policy making. And when he used such bad word against Harris the other day in one of his meetings, there was an uproar among the audience. So because he knows that this has resonance, I don't know what has happened to this country, and he has aggravated things. So his policy at any given moment will be to see what his base is asking him to do. And his base basically doesn't know anything about foreign policy, doesn't care, and many of them have lost jobs because of the internationalism of the previous administrations, because of the globalization, because of these alliances. So their sort of thinking is very simple: to hell with that and hell with that. So he will just go along with that. But having said all that, he's also clever in some respects. He's not going to get out of NATO. This much I am very sure of. He talks about ending Ukraine war within 24 hours. I doubt it. Of course, he's not. One can expect anything from him, but I doubt if he will do that. We will talk about Ukraine, I think, maybe when if you ask me any specific
Yeah.
question. But Harris is also feeling that Trump has this attraction among people, and even within the study community, people are rethinking. So I would sort of conclude my remarks by making a general remark, which I can develop in my subsequent replies, that there is a thinking going on within the strategic community that is this a good thing to insist on America's global primacy? Is it insist on globalization? Is it sort of a good thing to have that kind of uh, internationalism where the allies are counting so much on American help that they don't do much for the alliances. So there's a rethinking going on, and all these forever wars. Is it good for America? Is it good for America to be a global policeman? So I think there is a rethinking going on at that time, and also they feel that if public jobs are at stake, is it good for us to keep relying on China for all the goods and all that? So there's a certain degree of protectionism developing among the Democrats also. So I would conclude by saying that Harris policies are not going to be entirely internationalist as we might think, and the Trump policies might not be as isolationist as we think.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So a mix of foreign
Mix,
policy options for both.
a mix, yeah.
Yeah. So now turning to China, because for both parties, there seemed to be a bipartisan consensus that China is now America's main chief competitor. And so there could be an effort to maintain regional influence through alliances. I mean, by both. Both might want to do that. But do you envisage any policy shift on the approach towards China that Trump administration will follow as opposed to Harris administration?
As you have already answered your question, I think my guess is, which I probably tallies with your view also, that policy about China will probably remain bipartisan, and both of them are committed to that. I think, as I was saying in my previous answer, that each side has learned from the other. I mean, there were merits and the. I mean, so there is no broad consensus about China being a strategic competitor. But Trump, when he came, he kind of wanted a across the board animosity against China. So he sort of lit the fire on two counts. One, that sort of intensified the issue of Taiwan, and secondly, he hit China on the in the economic cooperation as well. So a period came in the last few years where people were getting very worried about possible conflict in Taiwan because elections were going to take place in Taiwan. Taiwanese also thought that's a good opportunity. And as you would know as well as anyone else, that how issues gather politics in Washington. So in Congress, especially, everybody was trying to compete with each other about who's more anti-China than the other. And every day there was talk of this so-called Cold War and conflict in Taiwan. And so naturally, the Chinese also got perturbed. When the Chinese got perturbed, they also had a show of force, and that sort of gave a good excuse to the hardliners in Washington. You see, China is very aggressive. They're going to take over Taiwan. So let's help Taiwan. Let's sort of give them as much defense support as we can. So the mix of politics and mix of strategic overextension led to creation of very heightened tensions over Taiwan. So I think Biden realized, at least being a traditionalist foreign policy, he can assess the dangers of such a thinking. So there were unpublicized talks going on between Jake Sullivan and Wang Yi, about which I have written an article also. So Jake Sullivan paid a visit, I think in August, and they had very extensive talks. And he called on Xi Jinping also. First time, I think in 8 years, at a meeting between an American National Security Advisor and Chinese president took place. So I think they have now managed to stabilize the relationship in which competition will continue. I mean, competition, as the American ambassador to China, Burns, said recently, that competition is intense, it is structural, and it will continue. But at least there's unanimity that it should not spill over into a confrontation. It should not spill over into a conflict. Military conflict should be avoided. And I think on Taiwan also, after the elections, things are settling down. There's a realization that maybe China, after all, was not trying to be aggressive. China was just trying to be defensive. That look, if you are going to do this, we will. I mean, if you are inciting Taiwan to declare independence, that changes the landscape. That changes the strategic landscape, which we will not, because China basically wants. Uh, the status quo to continue as long as no efforts are made by America to incite Taiwan to. But the American statements and the sentiment in the Congress was building up an opinion within Taiwan that look, America says we will support you, so let's go for it. But I think the Taiwanese have also realized, mainly because they have contacts with China directly as well, it's going to be a very dangerous situation. And both sides know that any conflict in Taiwan is going to be catastrophic for the global economy and even for peace. Now, when Trump comes, more or less, I think this will be the approach. Rhetoric might be different, but more or less, this will be the approach. Where I foresee change is on the tariffs. Uh,
On
tariffs.
tariffs. Oh, okay.
There I see some because the electric vehicles have become a very big issue in America.
Yeah.
These United Auto Workers and others, they're all very unhappy about the prospects of Chinese electric vehicles flooding the market here. So they will make sure that they don't come. Then Trump himself has said that we will deny high technology to China, which Biden started, and he will continue. So I would say that more or less the same policy, as modified recently by Jake Sullivan's visit, plus an extra sort of tariffs and extra economic cut.
Just a short follow up on this. President Xi and President Biden met about 3 times in the past 4 years, and on most occasions, but particularly in San Francisco, they wrote that our bilateral competition will not veer towards conflict. Do you think Trump will share that kind of sentiment also? He'll also avoid a conflict?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. As I said, his policy centers around what is good for his political power. And a conflict will sort of cause a major disturbance. You see, it will make things out of control. He likes to keep things under control. I mean, chaos, but controlled chaos. I mean, so I mean, he has his. He's very rational. I mean, and very calculating, and I don't know whether enough people realize that. He chooses his words very carefully. I mean, I have been studying his rhetoric very, very carefully, even if it is sort of intended to convey the words of an irrational man. That's a purpose.
I see. Okay, yeah. They do appear outlandish at times, but
Yeah,
there may be a method in this.
there is. That's
Yeah. Cheema, sir?
Yes, sir. Ambassador Takir, sir, moving on from China to war in Ukraine, and we have seen that there is no ceasefire, no conversation on that. And I think, as we were talking about Trump, Donald Trump called President Zelensky as the biggest salesman who comes to the United States and get billions of dollars. So, sir, in Trump's administration, it seems that they could reduce U.S. support for Ukraine, which could potentially embolden Russia and also prolong the conflict. Whereas Kamala Harris' perspective is of a continued support for Ukraine and a firm stance against Russian aggression and a commitment to NATO and diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict. So, how do you see these Trump and Kamala Harris approach for war in Ukraine?
Cheema, I think you are broadly correct about the contrast between the two positions. But one thing is becoming very clear to me that both will be intended to end the war sooner than later. I don't think even Democrats have a stomach to continue this war for too long. It has gone on too long. One of the reasons why it has gone on too long because the elections were coming. So naturally, you can't sort of cut off aid to Zelensky and ended up in a failure. I mean, that would have been a very big negative for Democrats to win the elections. So I think they have continued because of the elections. After the elections, even the Democrats, in my view, will find a way of reaching some degree of compromise, whether they threaten to give more aid to Zelensky so that he can put pressure on Putin, or they reduce the aid. I don't know what the strategy will be, and the Trump's strategy will also be, in a way, same to deny the aid. In other words, both sides' strategy will be to motivate at least one side to back down. You see, I mean, one will try to give major support to Zelensky so that Putin perhaps backs down, and the other will reduce support to Zelensky to make him back down. But I think the objective will be the same, to bring them closer to. It's not a very difficult issue on which they can find peace. What are we talking about? We're talking about her territory. We are talking about the NATO membership. We are talking of sanctions. And I personally feel that if there is a will on both sides, they can reach a compromise. I foresee some negotiated settlement when adjustment of territory and no membership of NATO for Zelensky, Ukraine. They will end up ending of sanctions. They will find some formula, in my view.
So moving on from Ukraine to the Middle East crisis, uh, we have seen that many people view that because of the elections in the United States, the war in Middle East has prolonged. So how do you see Kamala Harris? She would likely continue the current policies in the Middle East with minor adjustment, which means a somewhat balanced approach but firm support for Israel. However, Donald Trump could introduce significant shifts, particularly in military commitments and alliances, and even can reduce multilateral cooperation in the region. So, what's your take on that? How they are going to continue with their approaches for the Middle East crisis?
Come on, when we are talking of America and the Middle East, we are talking here now of uh, three things. It used to be just total unclad support for Israel, which continues. And Netanyahu has very cleverly, by manipulating the political support for Israel within America, to make Israeli interests synonymous with his policies. So he has made sure that when the Americans say that we will support Israel, that we will support Netanyahu's expansionism and his uncompromising attitude. On that, there is no give. But I think two other issues have now joined the debate. One is Iran, and the other is the growing influence of China in the Middle East. So the American perspective on the Middle East is now increasingly deviating away from the Palestinian rights and Palestinian issue. That's the unfortunate part of it. So when they think of Israel, first of all, they say, well, how can we make sure that our ironclad support for Israel continues? And once they calculate that, then they say, all right, what is politically feasible? How much space do we get to support Palestinians? To be very honest, very little space. And they give only that much space in which they can talk, but no, they cannot take any action. I mean, Obama was perhaps far more committed to the rights of Palestinians. I mean, you all remember the speech he made in Cairo because it was also a question of broader relationship with the Islamic world. Even he couldn't do anything. I mean, even his hands were tied. That so much is the influence of Israel. So I think while they will keep talking about doing something, uh, and it's quite possible that there may be some charade of rhetoric from Netanyahu also after the election in case of Harris, but he will, like he has done previously, if you study in the last 20 years, beginning with George Bush, he makes a pretense of cooperation in the first 2 years of any American administration. And once the second 2 year of the first term starts, the politics takes over and he then disappears. I mean, we have seen, so he knows how to manipulate the American political system. So the focus is going to be now what to do with about the, Iran. I think Iran issue will be and how much help to give to Israel to make sure that Iran is also Iran sort of influence, let's say, clout in the region is weakened. Second issue is China, and they are talking. When they talk of Middle East now, they talk only of security deal with Saudi Arabia. I mean, they have. I'm so very sorry to say, they can't see things in moral terms and ethical terms. They only see how to give security deal to Saudi Arabia, so to sort of make a sort of wean it away a little bit from China. So I am afraid the situation for the Palestinians doesn't look that good. And even in Gaza, uh, nobody is going to restrain Netanyahu. He cannot be restrained. He has seen that he can do what he wants and nothing happens. And in fact, after his recent so called victories by killing leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah, many people are saying, well, maybe after all he's right, that if he continues, he can eliminate these threats, which is in favor of the American interests as well. So I think the opinion towards him is also changing. That perhaps let's give him the scope. Trump, in fact, made a statement only 3 days ago. He said, "Look, I will tell Netanyahu, do what you have to do, and finish the job." And look at he said, look at the Democrats, they're trying to restrain him. They're trying to sort of put limits on him. They're not helping Israel enough. So I would think that even after the election, whoever wins, rhetoric might be different in case of Trump and Harris, but the policy will continue to help Netanyahu. Sorry to say.
Yeah. So Trump will probably be more firm
Yes.
supporter of Israel.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So on Iran, if I could, express my opinion that Trump is expected to persist with his previous administration strategy, which is maximum pressure on Iran. Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned that also, that for both sides, this is now a major issue as Middle Eastern politics is concerned. Of course, both will also probably support Israel and also alliances with regional strongmen like Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states. Harris, they say that she will probably continue Biden's approach, which is sort of nuanced balance with firm support to Israel and firm opposition to Iran. But they would also not like the region to become too volatile. And given the present tensions between Iran and Israel, how do you see you have partly answered this question when you mentioned But still, if you want to really emphasize a little bit more, if a war breaks out between Israel and Iran, what are the prospects of that, and where would US stand on that?
I think on the issue of war with Iran, perhaps there is difference in approach between America and Israel. Israel is riding so high that they will probably think that they can take the risk of going to war. They haven't decided yet, but that's why all these preparations are going on, but they can take the risk. America is concerned that, look, this war will not be contained, cannot be contained, and this will be harmful to the stability, not only stability of the region, but the global economy as well. And the Iranians very cleverly, as you know Iran very well, you have been there, very cleverly anticipated all this, and that's what their foreign minister is doing, busy making rounds and telling everybody that if Israel attacks, it will have very, very serious repercussions, and we will not just restrict our reply only to Israel. We will consider those who are supporting, or even those who are even making statements
Yeah,
in support of them. We will go after them as well. So I think America is really very cautious on that, and I agree with you, Eraz, that Biden's approach is nuanced, and so will be Harris. They don't want this conflict. They would like Iran's influence to be weakened, and weakened more through diplomatic means by containing Iran, by strengthening Saudi Arabia, by weakening Hezbollah, weakening Hamas, by taking their support groups out of the way. But I don't think they're prepared to sort of go after Iran militarily. They know the consequences.
all right. So from Europe to Middle East, now let's come to South Asia, um, where it is my understanding that both candidates are likely to continue strengthening their ties with India after either of them gets elected, essentially to counterbalance China's growing influence in the region. However, Trump might deprioritize projects, the regional projects like India, Middle East, Europe corridor, if he thinks that it will not have much economic benefit for the US, consistent with his America First approach. And so he would want only those projects in which that directly benefit US strategic interests. Harris also wants to continue engagement with India. Again, a bipartisan consensus there, I guess. But she will like to have regional and global initiatives and integrate them with the global supply chains. So, what is your assessment of the overall approach of the two candidates towards India and South Asia as a whole?
A good question is ours, and partly you have answered also, with which I tend to agree. I think the Democrats have gone too far in their support for India. Not only that, they have gone too far in building up these alliances, and in my view, they are making a very big mistake. The mistake is, and that's the mistake they often make, because American foreign policy is, as you know as well as I do, or better. There's no balance in it. There is no nuance. There is no such thing. That's perhaps the sort of the curse of being a very big power, that you can't think with humility. I mean, nuance comes with humility. So everything has to be in a massive way. Everything has to be supersized. So there's no balance. If you're going for alliances, go big. AUKUS and Quad and this cooperation and that cooperation. So the cooperation with India is now already gone beyond the limits. I mean, how much more can you do? And I think this is going to hurt them in the long term, because what they are trying to do, even though they oppose a multipolar world, but I tell you, by their policies, they are creating a multipolar world. You will see the just as they have had debates in the past, who lost Iran, who lost China, who lost Cuba, and a lot, they are going to have a debate who lost India, because India is very clever, but they are getting all the help they can get, and then they're going their own way. I mean, they are trying to settle things with China also. So they know America very well, and they take good advantage of that, keeping their autonomy and as well. So I think already they have done enough. Now, as far as Trump's policies, I agree with you 100%. I think what you're doing. I just add one more thing to that, and that is that if he goes with his tariff policies, not just with China, but with other countries, then India might also face the brunt of the tariffs. And that could create friction between the two. So I think that could be a possible area of friction. As far as as you rightly said, IMEC has not done much so far anyway. I mean, it hasn't got off the ground. As the overall South Asia policy is concerned, to be very honest, it's difficult for America to have any sort of proper strategic design for South Asia. Sometimes they come from time to time. Oh, we have now a South Asia policy. I have not South Asia policy. They have India policy, they have Pakistan policy, they have China policy, they have Afghanistan policy. There is no coherent policy in which they can see, all right, how do we do with India and with Pakistan in a way that their own relationship is not become more tense, and how do we avoid conflict? They don't really think in these terms, because even if they do, the politics takes over. So politics creates so many imbalances in their policy. So many. I mean, that is the bane of their foreign policy or their public policy. That's the reason why their foreign policy overall remains out of touch with the changes that are going on in the world. And sort of they succeed in their mind only when sort of when challenge is military. I mean, that is what they're familiar with. That's why in the last 20 years or so, we have seen increasing militarization of their policy. So I remain skeptical whether they will come up with any South Asia policy. They have a China policy, yes. They have an India policy, but I don't think they have a South Asia policy.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment. There was a time in 2017 that they produced a South Asia strategy, but that the context was more Afghanistan at that time. So they wanted to create an equation between Afghanistan, India, and Pakistan, and wanted to, give India a particular role in Afghanistan. But that's gone now, I think.
Yeah, you were here at that time, and that didn't go anywhere. In fact, when they started calling it South Asia policies, I kept laughing to myself. I said, look, there is nothing. I mean, basically, they said, well, if you want to settle things in Afghanistan, go after Pakistan, because this policy had an impact by McMaster also. And, McMaster was a hardliner, and he has written a couple of books also since leaving. Hawkish strategist. So he said the problem is Pakistan. Problem is not Afghanistan. We can win in Pakistan if we put pressure on Pakistan. So Trump tried, didn't succeed. So he said, okay, let's get out.
Yeah. Before I give the floor back to Qamar for asking question on Pakistan, may I bring in Afghanistan right at this stage? The Trump administration would continue to distance the US from Afghanistan. He has no interest in distant wars. and doesn't want even any military involvement. But he's also interested and or sort of um, concerned about the surge of terrorism, and which could, and Harris also is, likely to continue Biden's emphasis on counterterrorism in Afghanistan. I'm not sure whether Trump will like to focus on counterterrorism or not. I'm a bit confused on that, whether on the one hand, he doesn't want distant wars, but to the extent of counterterrorism, will he be involved? But both, I think, will not like any military involvement, uh, but they would certainly like to focus on counterterrorism. So, can you, you know, unravel this for me as to what is their approach on uh, Afghanistan and counterterrorism in that context?
Uh, I would agree with you, Azaz, that both will have almost similar policies in Afghanistan. They don't want military involvement, and not only that, even the political involvement is very minimal. I mean, they keep insisting on human rights observance before they can give any recognition or before they can give any direct aid. Of course, they're giving humanitarian aid. They're the largest donors of humanitarian assistance, and that will probably continue. And they are not going to get involved militarily, both sides. As far as the counterterrorism is concerned, uh, counterterrorism is basically now has become very kind of institutionalized in the sense that it doesn't sort of come in the head, doesn't come in the headlines unless there is some major incident. So cooperation is going on between Pakistan and the US, in my view, but it remains kind of below the radar. Public doesn't know and not
Okay.
need to know. What exactly is going on, to be very honest, I don't know. But
Okay.
it turns out that the terrorism, not only in Afghanistan, but also possible sort of bad actors within Pakistan that who can perhaps get involved in supporting Iran and all that. So that is also becoming a concern for them. And I think they are conveying these concerns to Pakistan privately. So Pakistan is kind of in a very complex counterterrorism relationship with the United States, where it is a partner as well as a target, and also as a victim. So I think there's three things going on: the partner, victim, and target. And you know it very well that what exactly is going on between military to military. At least I don't know. Perhaps when you were ambassador, you would know much more. But something is going on, and the Taliban themselves are dealing with the Americans directly through Qatar. So some contacts are going on. In fact, Taliban is saying, if you want to talk about terrorism, talk to us directly. Don't go through Pakistan, because they don't
Mm.
want any over the horizon action by Pakistan. And my guess is, this is just a speculation, that perhaps there must be some understanding between Pakistan and the United States on the over the horizon operations as well. So there is some uh, uh, underground context going on, trilateral, Taliban, Pakistan, and the United States. Taliban want the United States to deal with this issue directly to them.
Okay. I get the impression, it's just short follow up. I get the impression that in America, they now think that Afghanistan and the terrorism within Afghanistan is now a regional problem. And regional countries, particularly the neighbors of Afghanistan, they should now fix the problem, and it's not a global concern. And why should US get involved? Is this a fair assessment?
Partly correct, but in the sense that it should not involve America militarily, but America cannot just stay on the sidelines also. And I feel that some contacts are going on. It's just a question of feeling. I don't have inside information, but some contacts are going on. Perhaps regular contacts are going on this issue, because left to themselves, these things tend to sort of go in the wrong direction also, because they go back to their experience before 9/11, when they, for 10 years they literally didn't do anything in Pakistan, and just left Pakistan, Afghanistan to their own devices.
Mm.
A lot of them, bad things in Afghanistan happened at that time.
Mm.
So I
Okay.
think they are involved, but not so much sort of heavily engaged. Certainly not militarily, but it's an important issue that they have some contacts going on.
Mm.
Hmm.
Qamar, on Pakistan US
Yes,
relations.
sir. This is a most pressing topic for us as well, because in the history, the Pakistan-U.S. relations have been categorized as, in many ways. Like, one of the way was one of the we are the most sanctioned allies and the most allied allies of the United States. But sir, recently in one of the articles you had written in Dawn, the title was "U.S. or China." In this article, you argued that it would be in Pakistan's interest to have good ties with both the US and China, and that Pakistan should focus on developing its internal strength and stability. So, given Pakistan's close relations with China, US Pakistan's relations could experience increased tensions if the US administration, particularly under Trump, adopt a more adversarial stance towards Chinese allies. This could manifest in reduced military aid or more aggressive diplomatic stances. So, how do you see the Pakistan is going to maintain its relations with both these powers?
Kamar, I think they also have, both China and America have some shared interests in Pakistan also.
Mm.
I think both want Pakistan to, to be a stable country, and both want Pakistan's economy to be viable, because that is linked to the stability as well. Uh, and for example, there is a US support for the IMF deal also, and trade is doing very well. Last night I was talking to the trade minister in the Pakistan embassy, and he was very happy with the trade. The trade is doing well. In fact, he was optimistic about the investment. Also, I think Pakistan has to set its own house in order to attract investment. So he was. So economic relationship remains good. I think perhaps better than Pakistan has with other countries. Uh, Both remain concerned about the issue of terrorism, issue of extremism, and would like sort of to help Pakistan in their own way, that Pakistan not only becomes a good partner against terrorism, but also can defend itself from terrorism. And America realizes that Pakistan is facing threats from Afghanistan. You can see it in the statements of the State Department spokesman, the White House spokesman from time to time, that they do express support for Pakistan. As I said, there's a complex relationship as far as the terrorism is concerned. These are shared interests. So, to the extent that China's help to Pakistan improve its economy, helps Pakistan deal with the terrorism, extremist issues, because China is also becoming an target of terrorism, it advances American interests. And the Americans know that perhaps on this issue, or for that matter, any issue, China has more influence than the Americans have, because American image is not good. So if the Chinese can use their influence for the achievement of the same objectives in which the Americans have an interest as well, that is a shared objective. Now, as long as Pakistan-US relationship, Pakistan-China relationship does not overtly threaten American interests in the region, America will be okay. As far as I can see, so far, your Pakistan-China relationship is of no threat to America. Okay, if the American relationship with Pakistan was that relationship of the past, a high-profile air relationship, military relationship, intelligence cooperation, yes, there will be concern. But the relationship is going to be minimal. I mean, just correct working relationship, uh, in which doesn't feel sort of threatened. If China-Pakistan relationship leads to any moves which threaten their Indo-Pacific policy, which threaten India, for example, that becomes a matter of concern. So Pakistan-China relationship does not uh, sort of impact the America's containment of China policy. You can call it containment, you can call it countering, you can call it whatever, but I don't think it has gone to that extent where it would America would feel that they need to take action against Pakistan. So I feel confident that this issue is not going to arise in the near future. They will not just they're not here to take every country go against China. I mean, they in fact, um, I mentioned in one of my articles remarks by the American ambassador in China that we are not going to ask countries to choose. This doesn't work anymore. I mean, this one, he said so. He said it doesn't work anymore. Of course, they tried, but it doesn't work. Not that they didn't try. They tried and it doesn't work. In fact, they had backlash. I think where my advice to those who will be watching the program is to fix the proper timeline for U.S.-Pakistan relationship. U.S.-Pakistan relationship of the old Cold War days it was very high and profile relationship, both in terms of military cooperation, security assistance, and economic aid, is gone. That period is gone. I mean, the Cold War period has very little relationship with post-Cold War world. So that post-Cold War world has created new issues, new challenges for American foreign policy, for Pakistan foreign policy, for Indian foreign policy. So Pakistan needs to look at the relationship between the nations in that period, not keep going back. Baseline is very important because I talk to people visiting from Pakistan and they have such negative views about America. When I start talking to them, they start from 1954 and all that to look where we were and what has happened. America has moved over to India. I told them America has not moved over to India. America was always there. I mean, there is a perception, for example, I was listening to one of the anchors on TV in Pakistan, a very respectable anchor. जी मैं आपको बता दूं कि अमेरिका जो है वो भारत की तरफ जा चुका है भारत की तरफ नहीं जा चुका which was always there. I mean, they have just fashioned a new high grade extraordinary relationship with them given the present realities of their foreign policy. And they are trying to do the same with Pakistan in the context of the present realities of their foreign policy and the present challenges. They went to India from Washington. They didn't go from Islamabad to India. They didn't cross Wagah border to go to India. So I think this perception has to be cleared by Pakistanis that they are preferring India to over Pakistan. There's no question of preference here. Preference question arises when both have the same value and the same objective, and you feel that one will do better. Objectives are different. Their values are different. I mean, each value of each country in their foreign policy is now very different now. And the objectives that they have in each country are very different. So the issue of calling it preference is not a correct thing. It's a very new relationship. And Pakistani wonder, oh, our strategic value, what happened to it? I said the strategic value is still there, but it is now more valuable to China than to them.
Yeah. I find a lot of merit in that. Just two very short questions, maybe one-liners. What about CPAC? Does it bother the Americans? And second, Gwadar, what if Chinese interest continues to increase in Gwadar? Will the Americans perceive it as a direct threat to their Indo-Pacific strategy? These two questions.
As things are at present, Gawada doesn't bother them. But if, let's say, if its scope is militarized, that will start bothering them. I think that is where we have to draw the red line. I think that is where they feel that we are talking of something very different. Because by militarizing it, you are giving China a kind of a roundabout detour, so they don't have to go through Indian Ocean and all that. So they are undercutting their Indo-Pacific policy and undercutting the advantage that India has because of its location in the Indian Ocean and the Indian-US relationship. So I think as long as it is not militarized, it will not bother them. CPEC is a hard question to answer because CPEC itself is now at a kind of a transitory phase that's facing challenges, and it has fulfilled some of the promises and failed in some other respects. So I think as yet it's perhaps not a big issue for them, and they are prepared to invest in Pakistan if the conditions are there, if Pakistan can offer a viable project. So I think investment basically is Pakistan's problem, not the other country's problem. Pakistan has to offer uh, uh, continuity in their economic policies, improve the political stability and viability of its investment projects. Countries will come. You have so much money in the world. I mean, Middle East, they will invest. America will invest. But right now, I think the shortcoming on the Pakistani side. So as yet, CPEC, in my view, is not such a big issue.
Okay. Qamar?
Yes, sir. So, a question on democracy and human rights. We just planned it this way. How do you see how the Republicans and Democrats are going to look, particularly Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? Recently, there was some sort of a a change in Pakistani Americans' perspective on picking the American candidates, and we have seen that some Pakistanis believe that Trump is going to be a good partner. If Trump wins, it is going to be good for Pakistan because he's going to support a particular political party in Pakistan. So, how do you see the Kamala Harris and Donald Trump's position on democracy, human rights towards Pakistan, and how they are going to look into the domestic politics? Do you think that they will have some sort of a say here or not?
Uh, Kama, to give you an honest answer, they would not be that much interested in what's going on internally as long as the policy, there are no sort of what you call policies which are hostile to American interests, or there is no overt public campaign against America. There is no sort of high degree of anti-Americanism. It doesn't matter which party comes. Whichever party brings stability in Pakistan and takes a kind of a balanced, moderate approach towards America is okay with them. Things had gone too much in one direction during the rule of one particular party, and that bothered them. Whether they did anything to displace that party, I have my own views. I don't think they did do anything, but public feels they did. That's up to them. But that's a long discussion. But coming back to why people feel Trump might be a good for a particular party. I think there is a myth that that U.S.-Pakistan relationship was very good during Trump's time. Trump really did not care. I mean, he started. We all know his tweet. I think it was as you were here in January 2018, and I was
Yeah.
visiting Australia at that time, and we
Yeah.
had conversation
Yeah.
on that.
New Year tweet. Yeah.
Vicious tweet he wrote about Pakistan. And partly it was under the influence of McMaster also. And you know how McMaster treated when the foreign minister Khaja Asif came. So
yeah,
that policy suddenly didn't succeed. Pressure on Pakistan did not succeed. So Trump had to get out of Afghanistan. He needed help from Imran Khan at that time, and that is what he does. His two tactics of influencing others are either by blackmail or by flattery. He flattered him to sky high during his visit to Washington, and the public thought that his relationship with Pakistan has dramatically changed. Nothing happened. I mean, Pakistan's relationship was same as before and same as after. Is all you were no change in the relationship.
no,
He
yeah,
just
yeah. I agree.
did Imran Khan's help.
I agree. I agree. Well, overall, sir, if you want to say anything on Pakistan US relations, given that both sides would like to maintain, both major parties, Democrats and Republicans, would like their relationship with India to be a higher priority. And since Pakistan also continues to enjoy close relations with China, should we expect a continued transactional relationship between Pakistan and US with focus on security and whatever else America thinks could help its strategic interests?
You summed up better than I could. Honestly, with your last two sentences, you have summed it up very, very well, and I entirely agree with you. To tell you the truth, yeah. You have left me. I can't really add anything. This is exactly.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. I think we have learned a lot, and as you must have seen, that I was taking copious notes because the words you speak reflect a much deeper understanding than many of us do, and this will certainly inform our own opinion within the discussions that we are going to have. In fact, on 29th October, we're going to have a discussion among some experts in Snowden Institute on the same subject. So this particular discussion has really helped us. But since it's such a valuable interaction, we would like to place it on the YouTube channel so that as many people can benefit from it as possible. So from my side, thank you so much, and back to Qamar.
Thank you so much, Zaz and Dr. Cheema. It was really an honor that you gave me this opportunity to sort of say what I have to say. My views, as you can see, may not be shared by very many people in Pakistan, but this is how I have understood the relationship and the American foreign policy over the years. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank
As
you.
Ambassador Azaz has concluded. So thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very kind.
Bye-bye.
Very kind.
Khuda Hafiz.